Alrighty, Browns 31, Jaguars 27. Joe Flacco, 300 yards, 3 tutties, 1 pick. He's the first Browns quarterback. Think about this. He's the first Browns quarterback since Brian Sipe in 1980 to have 3 touchdowns over, I think, 40 yards, over 30 yards. That's insane to me. I think like December 21st of 1980 since Brian Sipe. Joe Flacco also broke another Browns record today. I think I'm not entirely sure which he broke another record today. Okay, we'll leave it at that. He broke another record today. But Joe Flacco, and it's still so weird for me to say this, but Joe Flacco as a Browns quarterback has actually been insane. To be honest, I know it's been 2 games, but he's thrown 5 touchdowns and 2 picks. Now, both of those picks were bad. They were bad for the team. But he has thrown, he has been more than serviceable for the Browns. And I think now that we've been able to see Joe Flacco play more, meaningful football, like, 2 games is still a short sample size, right? But I think what we've been able to see is that Joe Flacco has command of this offense that DTR and PJ Walker just don't. Now, I'm not saying that that DTR is bad. I still have a lot of faith in DTR. I think he's going to be a decent backup in the future. But right now, I think that him studying under Joe Flacco, him studying under Deshaun Watson when he comes back and when he's in the building, I think that's just going to help him in the long term. Now, right now for this season, I think Joe Flacco helps you the most in what DTR can give you. DTR may have the best upside of Joe Flacco because Joe Flacco's 39, right? But he's just a better guy. He is a better quarterback at this moment than DTR, and that's not hyperbole. That's just fact. The guy is playing really well for the Browns right now. That's just a fact. He's playing very well, and now you look at these next 4 games. They're very much winnable. 3 of these 4 games are very much winnable. You have Chicago next week. Houston's going to be a challenge, but you do not know the status of CJ Stroud yet because he got, it looks like it could be a bad concussion against the Jets today. We don't know for sure, but, his status for, the Browns game in 2 weeks may be unknown, depending on what the injury is and how, how severe it is. Then you got the Jets Thursday night football. Zach Wilson or Trevor Siemian versus the Browns on Thursday night. I think that's a pretty, winnable game there. And then you have the Bengals who just beat, Indianapolis. They beat their doors off today. I think that's going to be a challenging game, but I think that's a winnable game too. So you've got 3 out of 4, maybe even all 4 of these games, of your last 4 games, going into the playoffs that are winnable. And I think that, even if you go 2-2, in these next 4 games, I still think you make it in because you have all of these different tiebreaker scenarios and all of that. Now, I would like to win all 3 AFC games because you have one NFC game next week in the Chicago Bears. But I think that the Browns have winnable games these next 4 games. And, depending on what the situation is with CJ Stroud, you have a shot to go 4-0. I'm not going to look that far ahead, but we'll talk about the game right now. Joe Flacco was really good today. I think he made some, I think he had some mistakes. You're obviously going to have some mistakes all the time. No quarterback's going to be perfect. But you're going to have, he overthrew some guys. Some throws were not good. Bounced a lot of balls to receivers that were open, threw off his back foot a couple of times and bounced some of the passes there. But most part, I think him and Kevin Stefanski were in lockstep today. Those three touchdown passes, those were all Stefanski and Flacco right there. Like, those are all Stefanski and Flacco. The scheming on both the fourth down touchdown to David Bell and the touchdown to David Njoku, the first touchdown to David Njoku, were brilliant play calls. Brilliant play calls by Stefanski. Now, you got lucky on the David Bell one because the cornerback slipped, and that led David Bell to be wide open with no safety to help in the backfield. So that was really lucky for the Browns. But David Njoku having his first multi-touchdown game of his career. He had 2 touchdowns, 91 yards on 6 receptions. He didn't have another reception in the second half, which kind of bummed me out because I think he probably should have had over 125 yards in this game. Elijah Moore helped out again. Amari Cooper held out with 77 yards. A lot of people held out. Cedric Tillman had a couple receptions today. David Bell had that one reception for a touchdown, his first career touchdown. Kareem Hunt with the touchdown. And then you got 3 picks on Trevor Lawrence with 2 cornerbacks who, coming into this season, we were just hoping that they would get 1 pick this year. We were hoping that they would get at least 1 between the two of them. Martin Emerson and Greg Newsome were notorious for not being able to get any interceptions. Well, then today, between the two of them, they got 3. Okay, you've got 3 interceptions, 2 from MJ Emerson, 1 from Greg Newsome. I think really on that last touchdown drive by the Jaguars, if Anthony Walker doesn't tip that ball on second down, that pass that Lawrence threw really was going in on a slant route. He was going in on a slant. MJ Emerson was playing on the outside, guarding towards the pylon, and Trevor Lawrence threw the ball towards the pylon. He was throwing it to the outside. He wasn't throwing it inside to where Calvin Ridley was going. And I think if Anthony Walker doesn't deflect that ball, that might be another interception for MJ Emerson. I think you probably had three interceptions for MJ Emerson today. But 2 still is insane in one game. Myles Garrett played a lot better today as well. He had a lot of pressures too. I saw a lot of holds against him as well. He was getting a lot of holds against him from that offensive lineman, that left tackle. Ezra Cleveland, I think, is who the left tackle was. But he was getting so close, and I said it when we were talking about on the fourth quarter drive. He was getting probably, if he got to Lawrence like maybe a half a second or maybe a quarter of a second earlier, he would have like 3 sacks in this game. Like, that's how much he was getting pressure on Trevor Lawrence. And finally, on the 2-point conversion after they scored the touchdown with Evan Ingram, he was able to get a sack, stopped, and that was huge because that stopped, the Jaguars from being able to make it a 2-point game. So then instead of being, 27 or 29-31, it's 31-27. It's a 4-point game. So now you need to have a touchdown even if they get the onside kick. But I thought overall, Kevin Stefanski coached a hell of a game. Like I said, he deserves Coach of the Year nominations because the Browns now have become only the 7th team, or maybe the 8th team, the 7th or 8th team in NFL history to win, have 4 quarterbacks win them a game. And they've already did that once in 1988. So Kevin Stefanski definitely deserves kudos. I saw so many people on Twitter today, and I know it's Twitter. I'm going to have, there's going to be people who are going to complain no matter what. But there were some people who were just complaining about Kevin Stefanski the entire time, even though I think he had one of his best game plans today. Now, I will say one criticism I had of Stefanski today, he did not run up the middle at all. A lot of runs outside the tackles, and a lot of times those guys were not getting any push. There were some runs that worked and other runs that did not work. So I wish he would have ran up the middle more. I think that's the power strength of your line. You had, Nick Harris, Teller, and Batonio up there. I want to see them do some work. You've got backup tackles. Sometimes you went, and you had 6 offensive linemen or 7 offensive linemen out there, maybe even 8. Okay, you maybe even had 8 offensive linemen on the box or on the line. But I wish they would have ran up the middle a little bit more. That's just my personal opinion. That's my take. That's my criticism of Stefanski for today, is that I wish that they would have ran the ball up the middle a little bit more. Sometimes, most of the time when they ran outside the tackles, they were not getting any momentum at all. They were not getting any push at all. But definitely a good day for Stefanski. You saw him have emotion on the sideline. He was running down the sideline celebrating after Flacco threw that ball to David Bell for that touchdown. I mean, we're finally seeing, I think, just how good of a play caller Stefanski is. And I think that what we're seeing now is that anybody can be successful in his system. Literally, anybody can be successful in his system. It just matters if they make the right throws. And I've said that all year long after everybody was killing Stefanski after the Seattle game. I was one of the only people that came out here and I said, that was not Stefanski's fault. That 3rd and 3 call, that was not Stefanski's fault. Stefanski schemed 2 guys open. Jerome Ford and David Njoku were wide open on that 3rd and 3. And P.J. Walker did not look their way at all. P.J. Walker stared straight down at Amari Cooper, and it bounced off Jamal Adams' helmet, and that got picked off. And I think what we're seeing right now is that Kevin Stefanski I think he's not an elite coach, but he's good enough. He's good enough. I think he's in the same stratosphere as like a Doug Peterson. I think he's in that same area. Doug Peterson. He's not in the same class as like Harbaugh. He's not in the same class as Bill Belichick. He's not in the same class as like a Sirianni or Kyle Shanahan. But I think if you give him like, I think he's more in the class of like. I'm trying to think who's like a decent coach. Like a McDermott. I think he's in that. I think he's in that class. I don't think McDermott's elite. I think he's decent. I think he's a good coach. I think Stefanski's a good coach. I think he's a good coach. He definitely deserves Coach of the Year nominations. He definitely deserves to have an extension after this offseason based off what he's been able to do. And by all reports, that's going to happen. That's going to happen. Now, next year, you're going to have a conversation because Joe Flacco has been able to be successful in this Browns offense basically coming off the couch. Basically coming off the couch, off the street at 39 years old. Deshaun Watson, he's been injured, yes. He didn't play football for 700 days. But at the same time, the rust argument next year, it's done. The rust argument's done. Joe Flacco has proven to you that the rust argument is not going to work anymore. Because Joe Flacco just came in off the street after not playing all year long, having 2 weeks of practice, and he's back. He's playing way better than Deshaun Watson has. Now, Deshaun Watson, when he was your starter, he's 5-1. It's gonna be a very interesting year next year. That's all I'm gonna say. It's gonna be a very interesting year next year. But Browns are 8-5 right now. Everybody you needed to lose today lost. We're sitting good right now. The next 4 games are extremely winnable. Let's go out there. Let's go 4-0. Go 12-5. Put yourself in contention for the AFC North. Anything can happen. I honestly, I think anything can happen at this point because this season has been so freaking insane with injuries happening to quarterbacks, injuries happening to key players on different teams. The Chiefs not playing well enough, really. There's a shot here. There's a window here. And I think the Browns, the best part about this is that the Browns can make their own destiny. The Browns can make their own destiny. They can make their own destiny right now. And that gives me a lot of hope, and that gives me a lot of confidence going in to these next 4 games and hopefully having a deep playoff run. But that's going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. And I will see you guys all in another video. Take care.